Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 1 minute past noon. Pursuant to Article 11.2 of the bylaws, as Chairman of the Board of Directors, I take the chair of today's extraordinary and ordinary shareholders meeting and declare the meeting open. I call upon Carlo Marchetti, Notary Public, to serve as secretary even for the ordinary session of the meeting. I would like to inform you that in view of the health emergency linked to the COVID-19 epidemic, and taking into account the measures to contain infections, the company is complying with the provisions set out in Article 106, subsection 4 of Italian Decree Law number 18 of March 17, 2020, setting out measures for strengthening the national healthcare service and economic support for families, workers, and business connected with the COVID-19 emergency, establishing that those entitled to vote will only be able to attend the shareholders meeting through the designated representative of the company, pursuant to Article 135 undecies of Italian Legislative Decree number 58 of February 24, 1998. Without prejudice to the foregoing, participation at the shareholders' meeting by those duly entitled, considering the limitations that may arise due to the aforementioned health requirement, can only take place through technology that enables participant identification. I would like to inform you that those duly entitled to participate are connected by means of technology devices that allow them to be identified, and I confirm that I have personally verified the identity and entitlement of the attendees, and that they have the capability of participating in the discussion and voting. I also inform you that in accordance with the current provisions, the call notice for the shareholders meeting was published in full in the company website on May 11, 2020, and a summary was published in the following newspapers, Il Sole 24 Ore, and in English, the Financial Times on May 12, 2020. The agenda is as follows. We will have an extraordinary session concerning the proposal to cancel treasury in the company's portfolio without reducing share capital, consequent amendment of Article 5.1 of the company bylaws, related and consequent resolutions, and the ordinary session with 7 items on the agenda, and more specifically, Snam SPA financial statement as at December 31st, 2019, consolidated financial statements as at December 31st, 2019, reports of directors, board of statutory auditors, and independent auditors, related and consequent allocation resolutions. 2, allocation of the profits for the year and dividend distribution. 3, authorization to purchase and dispose of the treasury shares, subject to revocation of the authorization granted by the ordinary shareholders meeting of April 2nd, 2019, for the part not yet implemented. 4, report on remuneration policy and compensation paid. Point 4.1, first section, report on the remuneration policy, binding resolution. Point 4.2, second section, report on the compensation paid, non-binding resolution. Point 5, long-term share incentive plan for the period 2020-2022, related and consequent resolutions. 6, appointment of the director. 7, appointment of the chairman of the board of directors. In addition to the chairman, the chief Executive Office, Marco Alverà, and the following directors are present: Laura Cavatorta, Francesco Gori, Yung Peng He, Antonio Marano, Francesca Pace, and Rita Tolli. The chairman of the board of statutory auditors, Stefano Gnocchi, and the standing auditors, Gianfranco Chinellato and Donata Paola Petrini, are also present. Director Alessandro Tonetti justified his absence. I inform you that the share capital amounts to 2,735,670,475.56 euros, divided into 3,394,840,916 shares without fair value. I declare that currently there are 1,911 shareholders in attendance, for a total number of 2,453,000,000 5,087,821 shares, representing 72.27% of the voting capital. I ask Mr. Marchetti to provide the information necessary to declare today's shareholder meeting properly constituted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pursuant to Articles 1215 of the European Regulation GDPR, you are hereby informed that your personal data, first and last name, place of birth, residence, and professional qualifications of those attending the shareholders meeting was and will be obtained in the forms and within the limits connected to the obligations, tasks, and purposes set out in the current law. Said data will be included in the minutes of the shareholders meeting after manual and automated processing and will be disclosed and disseminated even abroad, also outside the EU, in the forms and within the limits strictly connected to the obligations, tasks, and purposes set out in the law in force. The list of names of those entitled to participate via proxy, indicating the number of shares held by each and the delegating shareholders, will be attached to the minutes of the shareholders meeting. Please note that a recording system is in operation for the sole purpose of assisting the preparation of the minutes. Recording will be available on the company website. Simultaneous translation from Italian into English will be provided. I inform you that, as recommended by CONSEB, financial analysts, journalists, and qualified experts will follow the proceedings of the shareholders meeting through the aforementioned recording. I inform you that regarding today's shareholder meetings, the requirements of statutory legislation and the regulations on regulated markets have been complied with. Lastly, I inform you that the voting at today's shareholders meeting shall take place through the designated representative, who shall cast votes on the basis of the voting instruction received. The designated representative is invited to make all the declarations required by law and, where necessary, to ask to speak on any matters or ask questions as requested by the shareholders. I therefore declare today's shareholders meeting validly constituted and entitled to resolve on the topics listed on the agenda. I inform you that the company has not received any request for the agenda to be supplemented or for the submissions of new resolutions proposal pursuant to the law and Article 126 bis of the CLF. As will be explained in more detail below, only some resolution proposals relating to items 6 and 7 on the agenda have been received. The entitlement to vote of the participants have been verified based on the circumstances known to the company and the declarations made by the participants. I ask the designated representative to report any lack of entitlement to vote or exclusion from voting, or the existence of any shareholders agreement pursuant to the law, current regulations, and the bylaws. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I have no declarations to make concerning these specific points. Thank you. So I acknowledge that there are no reports of this nature, and I ask Mr. Marchetti to provide further information in the preparation for today's shareholders meeting. On June 9th, 2020, and today, the company holds 125,482,107 treasury shares, that is 3.7% of the share capital. According to the information in the shareholder register on June 9, 2020, and from information received, those shareholders in direct or indirect possession of shares with voting rights that represent over 3% of the total shares issued, in addition to the company, which holds 3.7% of the treasury shares, are CDP Reti 31.38%, Romano Minozzi 7.38%, BlackRock 5.1%, Lazard Asset Management LLC 4.9%. Under CONSEB Resolution of 17 March 2020, number 21304, any person or entity which, on the date said resolution came into force, holds a stake in the voting capital of over 1% or lower than the threshold set in Article 120, subsection 2 of the CLF, was required to disclose this fact in accordance with the procedures and terms set out in the mentioned article within 10 days starting from the aforementioned date. The notification received from the company and or published by Concept as set out below. In addition to Lazarus Management LLC, Norges Bank 1.729%, Banca d'Italia 1.005%. Vanguard Total International Stock Index 1.16%. Pursuant to Article 120 of the CLF, those who hold significant stakes in the company as per the current provisions of law and regulations must disclose this fact to the company and CONSOB. In case of failure to make said disclosures, the voting right may not be exercised, and therefore the designated representative will be asked on behalf of any entitled parties who find themselves in this situation to make this known from all the votes. The company is aware of following shareholders agreement published pursuant to the law on company website. The shareholders agreement between CDP, State Grid Europe Limited and State Grid International Development Limited, also regarding Snam, pursuant to Article 122 of the CLF and Article 130 of the issuer regulations. I inform you that in relation to the right to ask questions pursuant to Article 127 ter of the CLF, some questions were received prior to the shareholder meeting from the shareholders Marco Bava and Re, common in accordance with the procedures indicating the call notice. As per the aforementioned regulations and the call notice, a specified file was published on June 16, 2020 on the company website in a question and answer form. I remind you that pursuant to the law, the company has appointed law firm Trevisan and Associati, represented here by Dario Trevisan, as the representative on whom those entitled might confer a proxy with voting instructions on all or some of the proposals on the agenda. I invite the designated representative to indicate for each vote the number of shares for which he does not intend to participate in voting pursuant to Article 135 indices of the CLF, and to make the declarations required by applicable law in the event that, if the preconditions are met, he intends to vote against the instructions he has received. Any interests pursuant to Article 135 indices subsection 4 of the CLF. Thank you. I declare the meeting open. Before proceeding to the debate, I would like to inform you that the reports of the Board of Directors containing the proposed resolutions have been filed at the company headquarters and made available to the public on the company website at the authorized storage mechanism eMarket Storage, www.emarketstorage.com, in accordance with the law, and have been sent to those who requested them. With the consent of the designated representative, and for the only agenda item of the extraordinary session, I propose omitting the reading of the aforementioned report. The resolution proposal will, however, be read. I confirm the omission of the reading. Moving on to the discussion of item 1, proposal to cancel treasury shares in the company portfolio without reducing the share capital, consequent amendment of Article 5.1 of the company bylaws, related and consequent resolutions, I ask Mr. Marchetti to read the proposed resolutions of the Board of Directors regarding item number 1, and with the completion of the operations to be carried out by the shareholders through the designated representative. Proposal to cancel treasury shares amounting to 33,183,107 with no indication of the nominal value, with the amount of share capital remaining the same and with the consequent legal effects as regarding accounting representation in the company's financial statement. Second, to amend Article 5.1 of the company bylaws as follows. The share capital amounts to 2,735,670,475.56 euros, divided into 3,360,857,809. 3. Grant to the Chief Executive Officer all the broadest powers, acting also via proxies and in compliance with the terms and procedures of law, to implement the resolution, as well to introduce, where appropriate or necessary, and in the best interest of the company, formal and non-substantial additions, amendments, and deletions to be recorded in the business register, and to do everything else necessary or appropriate to implement the resolutions referred to the board, conferring on the same any and all powers to this end, non-excluded or accepted with explicit advanced approval or ratification. I don't know whether the designated representative has to make any remark or observation. No, I have no remark and no question or declaration. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if you allow me, I move on to page 8.
So there is no discussion, and so the designated representative is asked for the purpose of calculating the majorities if in relation to item 1 on the agenda he has voting instructions for all the shares for which a proxy has been conferred. I do confirm. All right, so I'm asking you to cast the vote. Well, for simplicity, can you please read the percentage of the shares only? Votes in favor equal to 99.71% of the ordinary shares represented. Votes against equal to 0.23% of the ordinary shares represented. Votes abstained equal to 0.04% of the ordinary shares represented. Non-voting shares equal to 0.01% of the ordinary shares represented. Thank you. The board's proposal for item 1 on the agenda of the extraordinary session of the shareholders meeting is approved by majority as per the votes cast by the designated representative referred to herein. Mr. Chairman, you have the floor. Thank you, Lawyer Marchetti. Upon completion of voting procedures on the only agenda item of the extraordinary session of the meeting, I hereby close the extraordinary session and open the ordinary session thereof. I remind you of all the statements made at the beginning of the meeting. I declare that there are still 1,911 shareholders in attendance for a total number of 2,453,587,821 shares, representing again 72.27% of the voting capital. I hereby confirm that the meeting is validly constituted also for the ordinary session. In relation to the type of items on the agenda, if the designated representative does not object, I propose dealing with item numbers 1 and 2 on the agenda together. Naturally, the votes are separate for each item on the agenda. I confirm, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Furthermore, again, if the designated representative doesn't object, for all the agenda items, I propose omitting the reading of the aforementioned documentation. The resolution proposals will, however, be read out. I confirm, Mr. Chairman. So let's answer to the questions formulated. So let's move on to the discussion of items 1 and 2 on the agenda of the shareholders meeting. Item number 1, Snam SPA financial statements as at December 31st, 2019, consolidated financial statements as at December 31st, 2019, report of the directors, the board of statutory auditors and the independent auditing firm, related and consequent resolutions. Number 2, allocation of the profits for the year and distribution of the dividend. I ask Ms. Marchetti to provide some information on the obligations fulfilled with regard to the financial statement documentation and activities of the independent auditing firm. I inform you that the booklet containing the financial statements of Snam as at December 31st, 2019, the consolidated financial statements, the director's report on operations, which includes the 2019 consolidated non-financial statements, the reports of the Board of Statutory Auditors and of the independent auditing firm, as well as the proposals of the Board of Directors to the shareholders meeting regarding the approval of the financial statements and the allocation of the period profits, have been filed at the registered office of the company and made available to the public on the company website and at the authorized storage mechanism, e-market storage. I inform those present that the independent auditing firm PricewaterhouseCoopers has employed 480 hours for a fee of 36,000 euros for the independent audit of the financial statements, and for periodic audits 760 hours for a fee of 70,000 euros for auditing the consolidated financial statements, and 320 hours for a fee of 20,000 euros for auditing the consolidated interim financial report. During 2019 fiscal year, the independent auditing firm PricewaterhouseCoopers did not propose any amendments or supplements as a result of exceptional or unforeseeable events. Thank you, Mr. Marchetti. I refer to the letter to shareholders and stakeholders, the text of which is set out in the 2019 annual financial report published in accordance with the law, and I invite Marco Alverà, Chief Executive Officer, to outline the activities and the key results for 2019. The Chief Executive Officer's intervention will be reported in the minutes of the shareholders meeting. 2019 has been and was a positive year, rich for Snam. We have increased profits by 2.6%, EBITDA adjusted grew 3.5%, net profits on stakes grew by 35.8%, and the adjusted profit increased by 8.3%. And this allows us to propose a dividend distribution and 0.095 have already been paid out in January as a down payment, and the second tranche will be paid out on the 24th of June. So these results have been achieved also thanks to a cost reduction, the efficiency program, in order to increase profits from shareholdings, and also thanks to a significant reduction of debt from 1.5 to 1.1% gross. Let's have a look at the more strategic part. In 2019, in the first months of 2020 as well, progress was made throughout the four strategic pillars of our company. The first pillar regards the continuous improvement of our core business, regulated activities in Italy, and there we have a market which has grown significantly in 2019. Growth has been was over 22%, so 57 LNG ships arrived in Panigaglia, and we also achieved important survey activities throughout our networks, and for the 12th year onwards, Snam invested the foreseen amount, 963 million euros. And this is the peculiarity of Snam. This is our strength, which has allowed us in the past 12 years to write something down, to plan it, and to make it feasible. And this testifies the resilience of our engineering and operations networks. We concluded the acquisition of 49.7% of Alt, which is the regasifier in Livorno offshore, and this is a strategic plan, and hence we have a stake in the 3 gasifiers in Italy, and we have become a leading technology in this important cutting-edge technology for the future. We are the leading company worldwide because we have a stake in 3 plants, both onshore and offshore. Due to COVID-19, we performed the first dispatching case with isolated shifts, and so in order to avoid infection, so we asked our colleagues to stay isolated in their office at the end of their shifts, and shifts last 8 to 12 hours. I'd like to thank our colleagues for trying this method for the first time, because San Donato has been one of the first areas after China to be hardly hit by COVID epidemics, and many other areas copied this methodology afterwards. Debt, as I said, was reduced from 1.5 to 1.1%. We were among the first in Europe to launch a climate action bond for 400 million euros, and half of which has already been allocated. This is an innovative bond which is used in order to allure new investors on our debt, and this is used to fund our activities on energy transition. I will dwell on it later on. We also issued a transition bond for 500 million euros. We've been one of the among the first in Europe in order to fund energy transition projects. 150 million euro treasury shares have been financed and reaching 889 million euros, the repurchasing of treasury stock since the beginning of the project. Our third pillar pertains to the growth in international operations. There we achieved great results in Greece and Austria with regulatory updates which have just been concluded positively for us. We went on working on TAP, and this will be completed by the end of this year. We opened up a new subsidiary in Beijing, which is about to bill for our consultancy activities in China, and we worked during the lockdown period as well. And our French subsidiary issued a 400 million bond for 8 years with a very low coupon. 0.625%. Our last pillar, which is linked to all the activities related to energy transitions, energy transition has been performing very well. The business unit is called Energy Transition and is responsible for the development of biomethane, sustainable mobility, energy sustainability, and we set up a new business unit for hydrogen. There we have been working on 3 directions. First, we have to make sure that all our assets are ready for hydrogen, asset readiness. The second direction is related to policy. We've been working with the Italian government, with the European Commission and European governments in order to promote energy transition agenda, and the role of hydrogen is key. And third, we've been working on the hydrogen supply chain in order to grasp all the opportunities arising within the framework of new technologies in this very important market. As far as biomethane is concerned, we concluded the acquisition of Redaways, which is one of the leading companies in Italy for biomethane, and we signed the Merci and Evolve, which are leading companies in energy efficiency. The closing is still open. We signed 97 new concessions for installing biomethane supply stations and LNG supply stations. Moving on, as regards ESG, we have been performing very well as far as the environment is concerned. We reduced gas emissions by 12% in 2019. We reduced by 10% CO2 equivalent emissions. The climate action bond was issued, and investments have already been made in the field of energy efficiency. And we have also launched a program in order to reduce and eliminate the use of plastics. And this is this is a material which we cannot recycle. Then as far as the staff is concerned, the satisfaction index and security and safety index have improved as a management team. And as the board of directors, we're very proud to say that we rank among the 150 top companies, top employers worldwide, and we rank second in Italy. We increased training hours by 6%, and we also increased smart working, also because of COVID, and gender diversity. We are in the Bloomberg index thanks to the new policy, inclusion and diversity. As far as governance is concerned, as you know, we've been among the first companies worldwide to set up committee in the board of directors dedicated to ESG. We have a gender policy for the board, which was included into the bylaws. We performed 5,348 reputational checks on suppliers and subcontractors, and we included our ESG KPIs into our policies. And this is very important because we have acknowledged and we see that ESG is a trending topic and is a growing trend. Worldwide, we will see increasingly companies which are leading in the ESG segment, thus attracting new capitals and new investors. And this will be a distinguishing mark for Snam. I'm happy to say to the investors that Snam is a leading company in ESG issues today. We rank among the first companies in sustainability indices and to have more than 5 billion euro invested in sustainable financing. Thank you very much, Marco. I'd like to thank CEO Marco Alverà for his presentation, which has been extremely clear, showing the results of 2019. So, and now I'm referring to the conclusion contained in the report of the Board of Statutory Auditors to the shareholders meeting in accordance with Article 153 of the CLF and Article 2429 of the Italian Civil Code, and the concluding part of the report of the independent auditing firm and the financial statements. I'm asking Mr. Marchetti to proceed to read the proposed resolutions of the Board of Directors regarding items 1 and 2 of today's ordinary session of the meeting, and with the completion of the operations to be carried out by the shareholders through the designated representative. With reference to the board, let me read out the proposal. Dear shareholders, you are invited to approve the financial statements of Snam S.p.A. as at the 31st of December 2019, which show a profit of 816,531,795.17 euros. And then the proposal on the allocation of the profits. Dear shareholders, you are invited to allocate the profit for the year of 504,196,912.41 euros remaining after the distribution of an advance on the dividend for the 2019 fiscal year of 0.095 euros per share, resolved by the Board of Directors meeting of the 13th of November 2019 as follows. To the shareholders as a dividend, 0.1426 euros per share to shares in circulation on the coupon payment day, excluding treasury shares in the portfolio on that date, as the balance of the advance on the dividend, attributing the remaining amount to the retained profits from previous years. The dividend related to the 2019 fiscal year, therefore, between the advance and the balance, comes to 0.2376 euros per share. Resolved to pay the dividend of 0.1426 euros due on each share from the 24th of June 2020, with coupon payment date set for the 22nd of June 2020 and record date of 23rd of June 2020. I'm asking the designated representative if there are any shareholders' interventions on agenda items 1 and 2 of the ordinary session of the meeting, and I inform you that answers to questions put will be given at the end of the discussion on the items on the agenda of the ordinary session. Please, Lawyer Trevisan, I do confirm that I have no interventions, declarations or questions. All right, so I acknowledge that there are no interventions, and moving on to discuss item 3, authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares, subject to revocation of the authorization granted by the ordinary shareholders meeting of the 2nd of April 2019 for the part not yet implemented. I therefore ask Ms. Marchetti to proceed to read out, with the consent of the designated representative, the proposed resolution of the board regarding item number 3 of today's ordinary session of the meeting, and with the completion of the operations to be carried out by the shareholders through the designated representative. I will read aloud the proposed resolution of the board. So, to revoke the previous authorization resolution to purchase of treasury shares passed by the shareholders meeting on the 2nd of April 2019 for the part not yet implemented. Item number 2, let me summarize and compared to the usual resolution. So this is the authorization to the board and on its behalf to the Chief Executive Officer with the right to delegate said power to purchase a treasury share. Maximum duration 18 months, 500 million euros is the maximum outlay, and the maximum limit of shares is equal to 6.5% of the share capital subscribed. The modalities are those provided for by laws and regulations. The price shall not be above 5 and lower of 5 compared to should not exceed 5% to be below 5% of the reference price measured on the share market, organized and managed. And then point number 3, to authorize the board of directors and for it the chief executive officer with the right to delegate said powers to carry out any transfer of all of part of the treasury shares of the company purchased under this resolution, and also of the treasury shares already held by the company. So according to the methods provided for by law. I ask the designated representative if there are any interventions on agenda item number 3, and I remind you that answers to questions report will be given at the end of the discussion of the items on the agenda. So please.
Thank you. I have no remarks or intervention. So we move on to the discussion on item number 5 on the agenda, that is report on remuneration policy and compensation paid. First section, report on the remuneration policy, binding resolution. Second section, report on the compensation paid, non-binding resolution. I inform you that the 2020 report on remuneration policy and compensation paid has been filed at the registered office of the company and made available to the public on the company website and at the authorized storage mechanism www.emarketstorage.com. I also remind you that the report has been sent to those who requested it. I refer to the shareholders contained in the report, describing the main activities, to the letter to the shareholders, describing the main activities carried out by the committee in 2019. And I invite Francesca Pace, chairman of the compensation committee, to outline the main contents that will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a chairman of the compensation committee of Snam, I'm very honored to submit the report on the remuneration and compensation policy for 2019. So the committee consists of Avvocato Rivaroli, Avvocato Tonietti, and I would like to thank them for their commitment and very significant support. So since we started working together in March 2019, we aimed to make compensation and remuneration policy as a very important tool to reach the strategic targets of the company, and also to support the initiatives and to make these initiatives transparent. So we carried out an in-depth analysis to identify the peer group to use to make a benchmark analysis for compensation or remuneration. And we also selected and diversified different benchmarks. To strengthen the effectiveness of the remuneration policy, we introduced some significant amendments to also consider the incentive policy of the company. So the sustainability goals have taken a very important share, and this in terms of long and short-term incentives. So we selected this target together with the SG committee, and I thank this committee for their very important support. So hopefully we will provide a very significant picture of the strategies implemented by Snam, and I confirm our desire to share all the possible efforts and initiatives to reach the targets we set to ourselves. I thank Mr. Pace and ask Mr. Marchetti to proceed to read, with the consent of the designated representative, the proposed resolutions of the Board of Directors regarding item number 4 of today's ordinary session. So 4.1, report on the remuneration policy, and it is a binding resolution. Dear shareholders, you are invited to approve the first session of the Snam SPA 2020 report on remuneration policy and compensation paid in 2020, prepared by the company's board of directors in accordance with Article 123 ter, subsection 3 of Italian Legislative Decree number 58 of 24 February 1988. I would like to ask the designated representative if there are any shareholder speeches or remarks. So we can read the second resolution. Dear shareholders, you are invited to vote in favor of the second session of the Snam SPA 2020 report on remuneration policy and compensation paid in 2020, prepared by the company's board of directors in accordance with Article 123 ter, subsection 4 of the Italian Legislative Decree number 58. I ask the designated representative if there are shareholders' remarks or speeches on agenda item 4.1. 11.2. Now, no remark or speech. So we move on to the discussion of item 5 on the agenda of the shareholders meeting, long-term share incentive plan for 2020-2022 related and consequent resolutions. I inform you that the information document on the 2020 and 22 long-term share incentive plan prepared on the basis of Article 114 bis of the CLF and Article 84 bis of the implementing regulations of the CLF with resolution number 11971 of May 14, 1999 has been filed at the registered office of the company and made available to the public on the company website and the authorized storage mechanism in market storage. I also remind you that the document has been sent to those who requested it. I ask Mr. Marchetti to proceed to read with the consent of the designated representative the proposed resolution of the Board of Directors regarding item number 5 of today's ordinary session. Dear shareholder, the shareholders meeting of Snam SPA meeting in ordinary session, having acknowledged the proposal made by the Board of Directors and examined the information document prepared by the Board of Directors in accordance with Article 81. Bis of the Issuers Regulations, resolves to approve in accordance with and for the purposes of Article 114 bis, approving its motivations, the 2022 long-term share incentive plan under the terms and conditions stated in the information document annexed to the Board Directors' explanatory report, to grant the board and or on its behalf the CEO with express power to subdelegate all the most extensive necessary and appropriate powers to ensure the full and complete implementation of the aforesaid 2020-2022 long-term share incentive plan, to proceed annually to attribute an incentive to the Chief Executive Office, to annually draft and approve the regulations of the 2020-2022 long-term share incentive plan with reference to each 3-year cycle, and to make any amendments or supplements to such as may be permitted by the information document annexed to the report by the board, to identify the beneficiaries based on the criteria established, to determine any other terms and conditions required for the implementation of the 2020-2022 long-term share incentive plan, provided that is not in conflict with the terms of this resolution and in compliance with the provisions of the information document attached to the report of the board, to issue the disclosures to the market, draw up and finalize any document that is required or appropriate in relation to the 2020-2022 long-term share incentive plan, and in general to the implementation of this resolution. So I ask the designated representative if there are shareholder speeches or remarks on item 5. No remark. Thank you. In relation to the items on the agenda, if the designated representative does not object, I propose dealing with items number 6 and 7 on the agenda together. Naturally, the votes are separated for each item on the agenda. Moving on to the discussion of items number 6 and 7 on the agenda of the shareholder meetings, appointment of a director and appointment of the chairman of the board of directors, I ask Mr. Marchetti to proceed to read the proposed resolutions of the board concerning the items mentioned above. So the first part concerns the proposal of the board. Dear shareholders, who are asked to proceed with resolutions to be passed by legal majority to appoint a director to supplement the memberships of the company's board of directors in accordance with Article 13 of the company bylaws and Article 2364 of the Italian Civic Code. On the basis of the proposals to be formulated by the shareholders in accordance with the terms and conditions indicated in the report and the call notice for the shareholders meeting published on May 11, 2020 and available on Snam's website at Snam. So in the light of the foregoing, you are invited to submit proposals for the appointment of the new chairman of the board in compliance with the indications given in the explanatory report and the call notice of of the shareholders meeting, published on May 11, 2020, and available on Snam's website. This as far as the board is concerned. I inform you that on May 29, 2020, the shareholder CDP Reti sent the company a proposal to appoint Nicola Bedin as the director of the company, together with his resume and statement that he has the requirements to be appointed as a director of Snam, as indicated in the explanatory report of the board. The shareholder GDP Reti also proposed the aforementioned candidate, if appointed director, as chairman of the board of directors. The proposal was made available to the public site of the company and in the storage mechanism and market storage on June 1st, 2020. Do we have communications or reports? And I'm referring to the designated representative. No reports, suggestions or remarks. Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, since there are no remarks, I think that we can omit the part concerning the discussion, and with your consent, I would like to move on to the voting procedures. So, in accordance with Article 135 undated of the Consolidated Law on Finance, as the designated representative, if he has voting instructions for all the shares for which a proxy has been conferred, I do confirm. So, this declaration applies to all the items? Yes, for all the items on the agenda. So I move to point 1 of the agenda, the financial statements, and I ask the representative to communicate the percentages concerning point number 1 of the agenda. So 99.91% of the ordinary share represented voted for, abstained 0.7, and against 0.02. So there are no non-voting shares.
The board's proposal for item 1 on the agenda of the ordinary session of the meeting is approved by a majority as per the votes cast. In accordance with Article 135 and HES, I ask the designated representative for the purpose of calculating the majorities if in relation to item 2, he has voting instructions for all the shares. So item number 2 on the agenda, allocation of the profits, I hand over to lawyer Trevisan again. Thank you. As for item number 2, votes for are equal to 99.87% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.04%, against 0.08%. There are no non-voting shares. Right, so the board's proposal for item 2 on the agenda of the ordinary session is approved by a majority as per the votes cast. Again, so we have the same voting instructions, and I'm asking the designated representative to cast a vote on item number 3 on the agenda of the meeting. Authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares subject to revocation of the authorization granted on the 2nd of April 2019. Thank you. Votes for are equal to 98.05% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.04%, against 1.90%. There are no non-voting shares. The proposal for item 3 on the agenda is approved as per the votes cast. Again, we point out that as for the voting procedure on item number 4, all instructions have been provided, and so I'm asking the designated representative to cast a vote on item 4.1 on the agenda, that is the binding resolution on the first section on the remuneration policy and compensation paid. Votes in favour are equal to 98.41% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.04%, against 1.53%, non-voting shares 0.01%. Thank you. So the proposal for item 4.1 on the agenda is approved by a majority as per the votes cast. Again, voting instructions have been provided for item 4.2 as well, and I'm asking the designated representative to cast a vote on item number 4.2 on the agenda. Again, the report on remuneration policy and compensation paid, but this is related to the second section, which is about a non-binding resolution. Thank you. Yes, votes for are equal to 97.67% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.42%, against 1.89%, non-voting shares 0.01%. Good. So the proposal for item 4.2 on the agenda is approved by a majority. Let's move to the next voting procedure. So again, voting instructions have been provided. We are at item number 5 on the agenda, the long-term share incentive plan for the period 2020-2022. The designated representative has the floor. Votes for are equal to 99.42% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.04%, against 0.52%, and non-voting shares 0.01%. Thank you. Thank you. So item number 5 has been approved. Again, I hereby confirm that voting instructions have been provided also for item number 6. So let's move on to item number 6. In this case, the designated representative will cast a vote or will cast a vote on the proposal put forward by CDP Reti on item number 6, appointment of a director, based on what I have just read. Thank you. Votes in favor are 97.21% of the ordinary shares represented, abstained 0.13%, against 2.65%, non-voting shares 0.01%. Thank you. The proposal by shareholder CDP Reti on item 6 on the agenda is approved by majority as per the votes cast. Again, so Nicola Bedin has therefore been appointed as a director of the company in accordance with Article 135 on Deces. I hereby confirm that the designated representative received all the relevant voting instructions, and we can move on to the last resolution concerning the appointment of the chairman of the board. Again, the voting procedure will be about the proposal put forward by shareholder CDP Reti. Thank you. Votes in favour are equal to 96.57%, abstained 0.36%, against 3.07%. There are no non-voting shares. Good. So also the proposal by the shareholder CDP Reti on item 7 on the agenda is approved, again as per the votes cast. So Nicola Bedin has therefore been appointed as the chairman of the board of directors of the company. Thank you, Professor Marchetti. There being no other matters to discuss, I declare today's shareholders meeting closed at 1:54 p.m. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Thank you.